Okay, so what I want to do is talk about how we can basically benefit Agile through customer experience. One of the things I've been really impressed today is listening to all the talks in this room from different people, and we're all aligned on what Agile actually is. And you might think, well, hang on, we've all been told to say the same things, but actually we've all come at it from our own perspective, but it just shows you as a business how actually aligned that we are within there. But I want to take a slightly different route and say, although Agile is great, we know it's good for speed and quality and things like that, can we actually do better with Agile to drive a better customer experience? So what I want to do during this period of time is talk about what are the challenges we might face with Agile. And remember in the introduction, I'm coming at it as a product manager, which is slightly different from a product owner. Within our world, a product manager is really heavily focused towards talking to the business, the industry, the customers, whatever, whereas a product owner in our world, again, is, I suppose, a bit about the mechanics, making sure it goes really quickly and, prioritizing the backlog. So it works really well that way. So I want to look at what are the challenges within it, what are the frameworks out there that might actually help Agile, and then I want to take 3 examples from basically my past, so current projects, previous projects, different companies, and apply those principles and see what we've learned and benefited, and then we'll just get a couple of takeaways from that. So basically, what are the customers' challenges? Hopefully most of you should recognize this slide. For those of that you may not, it's basically a story of how we go from what the customer wanted all the way to actually what they really needed, along the way, And we can see within here it's wildly different. And you might say, hang on, we're here to find about Agile. We've heard Agile's give or take 17 years old. I saw this about 25 years ago, not so old, but actually what's changed? Are you telling me your customers explain your requirements directly? Do you deliver them all this exactly as well? No. What has changed, which we have heard, is we are now in that customer experience economy. We now need to think about this high-level process from a customer experience point of view. But what are the actual delivery problems within here? Well, there's screens in one of them, but I will talk. So from a delivery point of view, and by delivery, I mean product managers, product owners, devs, Scrum Masters, doesn't really matter. We still have this process. And you might say, well, actually the product managers aren't listening to the customers. The programmer didn't do it properly. The business consultant, clearly made it up. But ultimately, the customer didn't really do what they were didn't ask what they really wanted. There's obviously an element of the Henry T. Ford. What did they really want? Well, they wanted cars, but they thought they wanted faster horses. So, but why do we face these problems ultimately? So hopefully we can agree that this is the typical sprint cycle within here, and it does, within their typical sprint cycle, nothing new there, and a timeline. And if we look at this, we're doing the right things. We've got questions. How are we doing this? Have we got the correct use cases? And then at the end, who's using it? Are there any bugs? Can we close it down? Typical Agile. And you're probably going, well, that's great. I'm not learning anything from this. But I'm actually posing the fact that this is wrong. This is missing quite a lot within here. But we're all going, well, it's Agile. But what if we looked at it from a broader area? What are the missing areas? We've kind of largely focused about that today. But what about the salespeople, the people that are driving your business, your needs, your software, whatever you're doing, your product? Then there's the people who need to ensure that we've got customer success managers and account managers. Are the customers really happy? And most importantly, the customer in the middle. I think we need to think about this in a lot more depth. So if we look at this, let's just take those 3 things separately, and we'll go into this in a little bit more detail. What I found is UI designs. You might go, oh yeah, but we've done storyboards, we've done things like that. That's great, and it gives you stuff to build on, but actually, if you are sharing stuff with customers and saying, we built this, what do you think? And I'm talking high definition designs, and they go, well, that's good, but what about this? You start to elicit stories. And I don't mean user stories, and I don't mean story points or whatever. I mean stories about how people will really use it. And they go, oh, we hadn't thought about that. Then you can take that, validate it with somebody else. You go, oh, that's good. Validate it with somebody else. And we're starting to use community of interests, forums, whatever you want to call it, and we start to understand the value. What that actually starts to mean is we've got from this, we have a developed message. And by the way, note, this became before the Agile part. and this has come after, so that's the sort of sales, we now have a product, you can take those messages that you have developed and actually start to apply them there. So now we're looking broader. Within there, if we look at the customer engagement, basically, is it working? You know, are we having leading metrics? And I'll cover those in a moment. So are we actually getting from the customer the learnings, the benefits, and is it working from their perspective? Because ultimately, that's why we're here today, which we've talked about. And then if we look at the customer success managers and the account managers, if you remember that for our businesses, and this is you in the room, not the customer, our customers have to be buying stuff, which is great. And we might go, oh, it's got a great gross margin. But because we're in the world of SaaS and things like that, we don't want any churn, we need stickiness, etc. So we need to maintain sustained value, reduce churn way out there. So we're starting to get value. So that whole initial picture I showed of just that bit is very narrow. So how can we solve these problems? So my hypothesis, if I may, is that development or the delivery team or a large part of it is very much looking at it from into the process. So they're looking at an sort of should we call it an inside out process. This is what we are doing, and I'm going to deliver these units of work. That is my value. But then you've got the other people, the customers, the account managers, whatever it might be, and they're talking about value. But how can the value in the middle be the same on the value on the outside? So when we're talking about, what are we going to do in this sprint? We're going to say at a high level, and I'm absolutely paraphrasing and oversimplifying, we are saying we're going to put a database in, we're going to put a web server, and we're going to do the login page. Yeah. So as developers, technical people, from a pure Scrum point of view, Agile point of view, you're going, great, we ticked all these boxes. As a product manager or a business person, I'm going, you show me a blank screen. Woo. That's not really exciting. But we're both talking value. So we need to align on value. What is that particular part of value within there? So we need to ensure that we're using the same language. And basically, and I would say this to, should we call it salespeople, customer services people, but basically we need to somehow align Agile with Waterfall, because from a business's point of view, they've basically said, build me something that I can sell. Where is it? Yeah. From their perspective, which I'm not saying that's right, but that's their perspective. So we need to align on value. So development of looking at process, Agile, we all love it, it's great, I'm not challenging Agile. But business are looking at results, but we're looking at it completely differently. So ultimately, we just need to think about it differently. Developers are very much thinking inside out, everyone else is thinking outside in. What I'm really saying is you need to be thinking differently. Yeah, you don't want to be thinking about your little world. And if you remember, I had that picture earlier of all the different bits of the tree and whatever. We're all thinking about our little world. Developers, Agile, etc., need to think, inside out and also outside in. Same with sales, for the record. So because of that, I've talked about value. Well, where is the value? What should we be actually talking about? So at the moment, in a classic Agile thing, we've got a salesman or whatever it might be, adding value. That's good because they've basically said we'll bring some revenue in to the business. We then have here all the sprint value and all that sort of stuff. That's not for dispute. We now have a product and we can start to sell it. Obviously, there might be a bit of an overlap, bring value early. I'm oversimplifying. This is great, but actually, wouldn't it be much better if we brought value from the development team further forward, further to the left, over time, and then actually from everyone else's perspective, the customer perspective, the account manager, we start to see value over time. And the development team, or the delivery team, I should really call it, that value continues, which is where, if you remember those slides earlier, we were missing information over here, what's the questions, whatever, where's the continuing value? So we need to do that. How do we actually take this approach and give this value across the board for all particular roles so we can drive customer experience? So what I want to talk about in the next sections, because we've now hopefully identified the problem, from a customer experience point of view. Remember, we've been obviously talking about delivery. Oh, I'll keep talking. We're talking about delivery, and we want to focus about customer experience within here. So how do we actually look at it? Well, what is customer experience? I think we probably all have our own different flavors of it, but what I'm going to do now is talk about the different frameworks that exist in the world beyond Agile, and I'm not talking about, a Scrum type framework or SAFe. I'm talking outside of development type frameworks within here. Yeah? And as we go through it, we can hopefully answer, well, what is customer experience? Why is it important? And then how can we actually measure it if possible? And remember, we are trying to enhance the whole Agile process to deliver a better customer experience. So I'm just going to go through a couple of frameworks. So some of you may know this, some of you may not. Gartner Magic Quadrant. Ask yourselves, why do your teams or you individually actually deliver software? Why? All right, you love doing it, it's great, wonderful. Yeah? But actually what you are doing is ensuring that the company you work for or the company that your company sells software to, follow me on that, yeah? So Vonage, we obviously want to be successful, but we sell software to other companies, they want to be successful. So these other companies, company A in this case, they want to be a visionary. They want to have a great vision. Similarly, they want to have this ability to execute. So these are kind of the best in their area. So for Vonage, we sit in one particular type of Gartner Magic Quadrant. For other companies, there are different Magic Quadrants. So not everyone's competing with everyone. You're just competing in your own area. So ultimately, we're building software so our customer or our company can be a leader and a visionary, company A, or we want to ensure that our customers' customers are the same. So we all want to be here, but at some point we kind of start here. But do we go that way, or do we go that way and that way? You can't really do both. Yeah? But if you take the likes of Uber or whatever it is, they've basically turned up with a great vision and then executed it. Yeah? So you need to focus on where you are. But ultimately, that's why we're developing to deliver that sort of stuff, a great vision and a really strong execution. Then if we look at what's known as the Forrester Customer Experience Index, another analyst, they went out and interviewed something like 8,000 businesses, customers, so a lot of people. And they basically said, we can measure customer experience. Yeah? And when you look at customer experience and you phone up a contact center, whoever it is, or it was getting here today, yeah? Did you actually get out of your experience or whatever, your goal, was your bank account sorted? Yeah. Was it easy? Were you transferred 20 times? But how did you feel about it? Did it go well? Did you engage with that particular person? And you add all that up, and it basically comes to a great customer experience. Historically, they thought everything was equal weighting. What they found a couple of years ago is actually 25% is, did you solve it? 25% is, well, was it easy? And 50% was the emotion. How did you feel about that experience? Yeah? I'm not going to ask you, but you're probably having a certain emotion right now, but it's probably quite easy with little bits of effort because you sat still. But you will walk away at the end of this with an emotion, and that will be your takeaway. No matter how easy it was to get here, leave, or whatever, or when you solve your bank account problem, whatever it is. Yes, it might have been easy, but your emotion is driven by that easiness. Think Amazon, yeah? You are actually engaged with Amazon because it's easy, and that is pulled on your emotional strings. That's why you're liking Amazon. So we need to think about it that way. Another way of looking at it is Temkin Voice of the Customer. This is surveys, feedback. I'm always sure you'll go, oh God, we hate that sort of stuff. And personally, I do too. Professionally, I'm on for it. And we, as Vonage, are asking for your feedback. But you might argue that we're down here. I would argue we're a bit further up, but that's, we're novices, we're doing bits of paper or whatever. But ultimately, we just want to know, was it good for you? Which is great. So we've collected some information. Analyze, we're looking at that, and hopefully we like 90% positive, 5% indifference, 5% we threw it away because we don't want to count it. And within here, so we're starting to analyze, but actually you want to collaborate. So the team that has basically asked for the feedback now then comes to me and says, Jonathan, we got like a 70% rating. I'm leading you here for later on, okay? 90% rating within here, yeah? And we're collaborating, we're working together. But actually what we want to do is change the business. We want to be transformers. We want to take the business somewhere else, Yeah, not just be the same when, Lyft went, oh, hang on, Uber's got a good idea. Let's go and be the same as them. Yeah, I don't think that was ever discussed. Yeah, we want to take it to the next level. And just for the record, when we were practicing this, and I even talked to my wife, I'm not talking about transformers because that's where people's heads went. Yeah, another one, value discipline model. Keep with me. When Gartner were thinking about how do they build customer relationship models, and I'm not talking CRM, Salesforce, Zoho, whatever it might be. How do you build these things? They basically said you need to have operational excellence, you need to have great customer service, and you need to do good product innovation. And which is good, and as long as you're doing all those things reasonably well, you're going to be a pretty successful company. But these people, Michael Tricci and Fred Wiseman, basically did further analysis and said, if to be really, really good, you have to do one of those things exceptionally well. An example, Nike, product area, so product innovation, beat Adidas, within there. That's what they want, and everyone wants, that's great. Dell, obviously going back a little bit, their operational excellence. You could basically go onto the website today, say, this is what I want, and you'll have a laptop tomorrow, yeah? Whereas Compaq were going, well, that's great, go to the store and we'll see you in a month's time, please, yeah? Home Depot, which is it's like a DIY store in America, yeah? Great customer service, loyal, and became market leaders. They all focused and excelled, and this is the key thing, in one of those areas. Where are you going to focus? And remember, as I'm going through all these, I'm going to apply each of these individually to 3 products that I've been part of their development and launch and stuff like that, rather than just talking random stuff. Yeah. So now we've talked about different frameworks, and these are frameworks within here as well. How do we start to measure it? These are leading indicators versus lagging indicators. So if we come back to the feedback that we were talking about, at the end, there's going to be a box full of happy faces or sad faces, whatever. Don't really know. But it's a bit late. I have finished my presentation. You got what you got. But wouldn't it be nice if you just walked up to me now and went, there's a smiley face, and I'll keep going. Or if you gave me an unhappy face, I go, okay, I better, lift my game. It's a leading indicator. Are you engaged? Are you going places? Are you going to stay in the room, please? Yeah. So from a product point of view, a software point of view, well, you might think of lagging indicators as how many people logged in. And you go, well, we get 1,000 people logging in every day. Isn't that great? Yeah. And we've put another 12 features out this increment. Ooh, great. But actually, one of the products I'm going to talk about a little bit later is called Conversation Analyzer. This isn't a sales pitch. It basically analyzes calls and tells you what's going on in those calls. Now, we analyze 1,000 calls an hour within there. That's great. You would go, oh, isn't that wonderful? We're analyzing 1,000 calls an hour. But if nobody actually listens to those calls, runs the reports or whatever, the analysis of those calls or the recording of those calls is useless. Yeah? You actually want to know the people who are running these reports, analyzing it, whatever. So similarly, that's a measure of engagement. We're actually using the tool. Number of admin users, changing systems. So if you've got an admin console that changes some logic or whatever it might be, changes the price, the sales control unit, stock unit, people are changing it, they're using it. Oddly enough, cases raised, there's a problem with your software. If you're getting quite a lot of those, you might think, well, hang on, this is a bad thing. People are using your software. When we discover a bug in software that I'm responsible for and no customer has told me about it, it actually really disappoints me. I mean, yeah, I've dodged a bullet, but it means they're not using it. That is a leading indicator. Or reports run. So we're looking at that. We need to think about those things. So another one. And this is what I was referring to earlier. A lot of this you should be hearing in little snippets or whatever, and this consistent message running through. KPIs, key performance indicators. These are number-based targets. Did I do the presentation in the 45 minutes I was allotted? We will see. Yeah. Did we fix 20 bugs this week or whatever? Great. But there's no why. It's all about the process. The percentage of projects that ran on time or whatever it is. How many of your initial estimates were within 5% or whatever. And it's a measure of process. It doesn't really measure the outcome. If we fix 20 bugs, well, so what? Actually, we should be thinking about, objectives and key results, which is a much more aggressive way of thinking, which should be more along the lines of, let's make our software really engaging, smooth to use for the customer. And by the way, out of that, there will be very few bugs. Yeah? So it's all about the outcome, thinking to the future. What should we be doing within here? And it's measurable results on the business within that. Yeah? And more importantly, it's not tied to an individual, whereas a KPI is. Yeah? And so the OKRs are part of the greater business, and I think we heard that earlier. It might be at my level, then the level above, then we heard Alan talking, whatever it might be. But it's also tied to teams, within teams, whatever, which probably should start to sound familiar to Agile at scale within there. Yeah? And also it allows the team to align. And again, it should be sounding familiar if you know anything about Agile, which I appreciate my audience. Yeah? So that was really interesting, I hope. But so what? How does it apply to my world? Yeah? So if we actually look at it, yeah, and we put this into place, how the customer explained it, think ultimately they are trying to be a visionary. They don't want to be the same, have their context within there. Yeah? They want to have the best swing in the park. They don't want the same one that's rusty that Bill's playing on. Yeah? How the project leader understood it. We want leading indicators at that point. How many times did the customer say to me, do you understand what I asked for? Is that going to work? Will you deliver that value? If they're asking that every hour, yeah, or every day or every meeting, clearly I'm doing quite a poor job as a as a product manager. Yeah. Then we saw a little bit further, I'm just going to talk, we saw the Temkin model. Focus on transformers. Don't just go, let's build something that's similar to what everyone else is building. Let's focus beyond that. Then further on, we are starting to implement OKRs, which is obviously these key objectives and results as we went further along up here, which is basically where that part is where the analyst sold the armchair on the tree. Yeah? So we've got that. And then as we go further on, I was rather hoping for a queue within here. Yeah? If we look at the, it's just not happening, is it? Okay, fine, I'll just talk. But further on, we basically, one of the images was basically just a rope, nothing else, because that's what was delivered. But if we were working on OKRs together, we'd have known that wasn't sufficient. Yeah? And then one of them, we're partway there, was the, there we go. How was the customer billed? This super duper thing, they only asked for that. But actually, if we were using the leading indicators, at this point, we've gone through this process and we were leading, we know we've been doing a good job. We could actually bill for a massive amount of money because we believe we're doing this. But at the end of the day, how did the customer feel? What was that experience? So these are the different places that you can actually apply each of these sort of frameworks to try and make the process a little bit better. So I'm going to, as I say, do 3 scenarios applying this, how we've used it and the benefits, but some simple improvements. So just to frame this, one of my colleagues in the room, yeah, he just raised the bar for all us men. I really don't like him. Yeah? But he bought a handbag for his wife that cost a lot of money and it takes 2 months to make. Yeah? So just as a note to you men, up your game. For the ladies, he's in here somewhere, grab him. But it takes 2 months to make, yeah, within here. So she, when she was told about it, she was no doubt given a card, very, very excited. How good is this? I've got this, 2 months, whatever. And as time goes on, she gets a little message saying, we've got the leather, it's all ready. A little bit later, it's cut. Oh, now we've dyed it. Now we've shaped it. A little bit later, we've put that special tassel that makes it your bag and unique to you onto there, and now we've shipped it. Yeah, all throughout, that is just the customer experience, how she's feeling about it. And if you think of it from an inside-out perspective, well, all you're doing is sending a text message. Oh, we've done this, we've done that. So what? Great process. But think of it from an outside-in perspective. How excited is my colleague's wife to receive that text to say, I've got, we've put that little tassel on that makes it unique to you, that is yours. And by the way, in 2 days' time, I'm going to send you another one, which means in 2 days' time, your handbag's going to be here in this wonderful whatever. Yeah? Thinking outside in. It's a different way of doing it. Yeah? So if we look at it and break it down and bring it into our world, customers just want to know where they stand. So if we promise something, then make sure it is a promise that you can back up. So what we do internally, our salesman can say, whatever the heck they like. Obviously, we try and curtail them, but if they say, we'll do that for you, then they've just embarrassed themselves, because we will say, no, you will not. Yeah, we have our plan. This is what we've got. However, we do have something called a product review board, a process review board, where we can say that actually sounds a really good idea. Yes, we will bring it in and we will deliver it, and we will deliver it then. At that point, that's fine. And then we deliver it, the salesmen trust us, so on and so forth, and then we have that valid process within here. Yeah. So now the customer can understand those plans and expectations set. Communication, it's just lack of clarity and awareness. Are we in that process? Are we delivering when we're going to deliver? Think of the handbag. Yeah. Imagine he bought it and then there was nothing for 2 months. You know, and the handbag turns up. You go, oh, thanks for the handbag, but I got excited back then. Keep that customer experience alive. Yeah. And then here, if it's going to be late, that handbag, send a message. So yesterday, it took me. I was on a plane for 6 hours for a 2-hour journey. We sat still for 4 hours. Yeah. Which is a bit frustrating. Hey, I'm not the only one. But the captain would actually come on every half an hour and say, look, this is not very good, but I have not been told anything else. At least he was engaging us, telling us of the process and updating us, so we knew where we stood. So it was visibility all the time. There was no surprise on the delivery or whatever. At least we knew where we were. One of the things, and my colleague talked about it earlier, was weightest, shortest job first, which he quickly glossed over, but it's a really good thing. We introduced it fairly recently. And what it basically means is you've got a list of features that you need to do, which is great. Yeah. But which do you do first? Well, we talked about, I've got the biggest paycheck, but that's not really how it works. We talked about autonomy, self-control. We need to balance those. So imagine we've got all these features. What is the business value of feature A? It's 8. And this is, sorry if I get a bit mathematical, it's Fibonacci. You basically go 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, 20. That's it. Yeah. It's a scale of risk. Yeah. And both have gone up. Feature 8, timing impact. Maybe the license on this particular bit of software expires in 3 weeks' time. It's a bit urgent, yeah? Risk reduction. Well, actually, this, not so bad. It ticks along quite nicely with the software, but this is creating a lot of cases, yeah? And there's a bit of a churn risk. So when you look at it, yeah, you would do this. The cost of delay, these 3 things added together, yeah, you go, let's do that. But actually, you then look at the estimated size, you divide that by that, which gives you that. So actually, you would do A, not B. And remember, it's down to when we get these small, useful bits of value and we want that flow, so we're getting value sooner. That's not to say we won't do this immediately after, but do you want 6 units of value first, or do you want to wait for 3 units of value and then get 6? Yeah, it's when it comes out. So these are something we did. So it gives us this better flow. But then there's always that balance of product versus technology. And we've split today's session, basically kind of product, technology. I sit on the product side as a product manager. Tech debt is somebody else's problem. Yeah? But it's important, it's real, and it has to be accounted for without a doubt. But actually, taking this approach, weighting everything, yeah, and looking at it, still gave us pretty much the industry standard of roughly a 60-40 split. So it works really well. So let's try and bring these things to life within here. So we've seen what the sort of problem is. We've seen some potential solutions, how you can drive. And remember, this is about customer experience within here. So how can we do that? So let's looking at it from engaging with customers throughout the process. So very quickly, I've got 15 minutes to go, 5 minutes on each of these. So we've done, and these things are basically things that I've delivered in my current job, previous jobs, or whatever, over time. So not just this particular company. So we want to, the problem in a contact center is you've got potentially 1,000 agents. Which agents are saying the right things? Which agents are saying the wrong things? The typical approach is I'm going to listen to 1% of calls. Yeah. So out of 1,000 agents, and they take 10 calls a day, simply put, we've now got 10,000 calls, and I'm listening to 1%. So I'm listening to 100 calls out of 10,000. Is that statistically significant? No. Yeah. So this tool solves that problem. It decreases customer churn, increases engagement, reduces compliance. And hopefully you're in agreement with me. I know it's a long way away. It's a lovely UI. And when you look at it in the bigger picture, it's actually pretty unique in the market. But I don't want to dwell on it. Just hopefully you get an idea of what the product does. So we look at our typical sprint model. Where did we use all these things we've talked about to make the whole customer experience better using Agile? We're trying to come. So We focused absolutely on product excellence here. Yeah, this is what we're doing. We're going this way to the expense of everything else, and we'll learn about that in a moment. We knew what we were doing. Conversation Analyze that I've just talked about, it changes how a contact center behaves. So we absolutely needed to be thinking about transforming, not just match the competition or minimal viable product. We had to transform businesses this way. We also started to introduce the leading indicators, because as we saw this being developed, we started to see that people were getting engaged that much earlier, and they were asking questions rather than waiting to the end going, when can I have it? They were asking this, when is it available? Can I have it? Is it ready? Is it minimum viable product? But as we went on and we started showing it to these analysts or whatever, we realized that actually we shouldn't be thinking about KPIs, the developers going, oh, I've done 20 story points today, woo. Actually, we should be thinking of the bigger picture within here. We have got a game-changing product that we want to take to the market. We want to launch it quickly. Doesn't that sound like an OKR? And an OKR is a combination of teams, and Agile's fitting into that. We started to look at that. So you saw the user interface. Believe it or not, it's actually a very engaging user interface. What that has meant that people have high emotion when they're using it. It's about my calls. I'm being told my call is good, my call is bad. I need to be emotionally engaged. And actually what we did is we went very quickly along the functional bit, and the visionary bit, and then we moved quickly into the execution within here. So what did that actually give us? What were the benefits? So if we look at customer engagement, we had a great UX. Every time we put this in front of our prospects and customers, etc., they look at it and go, that's great. I can see how that works. That will make a big difference to my business within here. And because we'd had that early engagement, it was the OKRs, we very much had speed to market. It just meant that people just adopted that so quickly. But, and there's somebody in the team who helped in here, so I'm very aware of what I'm saying now. So within here, technical, not business. If you remember, we absolutely focused on product excellence within here. And with such a tool, you basically have to have, should we call it the player, yeah, and the analyzing tool, yeah. The player bit, that's absolutely what we focused on, and it was great. Second to none, happily standing up there. The administration tool, we kind of ran out of time because we spent a lot of time on the player tool, not the administration tool, yeah. So what it means is we have to upload some JSON to get this to work, but which is a bit odd, because it's a business tool, yeah? So what that basically means, from a technical point of view, it works, but we're running the risk of low stickiness, because people go, I can't engage with this, I need professional services to do this, high maintenance and churn. But as you can see, we got great engagement at the player, we've got to do that. So you run the risk if you go too much technical excellence. You have to have a little bit of, well, how are people going to use it? But because we had such engagement at the start or whatever, it was much easier for sales to deliver that, the business value messaging. If I just go back, remember we said way back, show lots of user interfaces, etc. And then from that, you start to drive sales messaging. So basically, we're talking about speed of market, but again, thinking outside in, how can we do this a lot faster? And ultimately, we got really high employee adoption. People love it. Because imagine I could pick this thing apart afterwards. I go, I could do better there, improve that. Oh, that was really good, whatever it might be. Yeah, we can do that. So we've got high employee adoption. So we have customers in the UK, like an estate agent, Yopu, are basically all their agents are just going, this is great. I want more information. I am so engaged with this. Strong ROI, return on investment. We have customers within 1 month, they had made some savings, because instead of having lots of people listening to lots of calls, we had one bit of software listening to lots of calls and one person managing it. So what is the end vision of a great customer experience? How do we do that? So this is surveys feedback, yeah, which we all go, oh, personally. The reason I do that, I believe in it, but we should do it. Imagine I met you down the pub, yeah. I wouldn't say, give me a score out of 10 for my session. I'd go, how was it? And the reason I would ask you that is because you might give me a 9 out of 10, a 7 out of 10, but I can't action that. But if you tell me what's important to you, yeah, then I can actually act on that, yeah. Think about going on holiday or whatever. Which is, we put these surveys get the feedback off the customer, and we then give that feedback to an agent. Yeah? Imagine you're all holding up words right now going unclear, clear, brilliant, informative, boring, whatever. I could respond to that. As an agent in a contact center, I am basically seeing all these. Lots of greens, isn't this great? Am I good? Am I bad? It's all about engagement. We heard earlier on today, 85% of employees are not engaged. It looks like more than 85% of you are engaged right now, but whether that's with your phones or me, I don't know. So we had to get all this information to the agent's desktop to basically drive better customer service, which is all about the experience. Yeah? So how did we apply that into this world? Well, feedback should be, it's not always, but it should be about leading measures. How do you feel about my business? How are we going to change it so you continue to do business? We had to apply that rule 10 times over every single time. But again, within this bit, this is where we then spent a lot of time focusing on the transformation bit because it is transformative, with these customers saying, what do you think of this really high quality design within here? So people would be engaged and go, that's great. Why would you use it? Not, I want to press that button and it goes beep over there. If I press that button, my agent will give better service to our customers. That's what they're really about. How will they do that? Well, they will realize that they need to give better service because, you know, they get a better job, they'll get their performance, whatever. And if they do better, they'll get personal satisfaction. We heard earlier on today, money only goes so far. It's all about empowerment of those sorts of things. So we needed to focus there. At this point, we were ideally aiming for OKRs, but the disadvantage, which we'll cover a little bit later, of getting all this feedback is you get so many stories and ideas and whatever. So in the end, we kind of had to just try and churn through all this as much as possible. But ultimately, we were aiming towards this. It was about the agent having a great engagement and having people use the tool and love using that tool. So what did we get from that? Well, ultimately engagement. If you like using a tool, that's great. I mean, I don't know how many of you love using Jira or whatever tool it is. It's a necessary thing, but you don't go, great, I look forward to moving that over there today. Yeah, it's just necessary. But when it's about engagement and experience, that's what you want. Do you come in and go, I'm going to give customers great experience today? Hopefully, yes. Yeah. It was a cultural change. We've touched on this. You're hopefully beginning to see a thread now. Yeah, culturals changed when we were doing it and driving it from within here. Virtual team. So yes, we had the developers, we had product managers, whatever it is, but we had lots of customers around there. So we were always on the phone. But it was not just, oh, at the end of the sprint, let's do a demo, which is good, worked, absolutely. But remember, we talked about leading indicators. We would make suggestions visually or whatever before we even demoed it. So they go, yeah, that's good. So we were a lot more efficient, but there was a lot of overhead, certainly, at the start. But when you're writing an engaging tool, you need to engage your customers within there. So we kind of had these more ceremonies within here, but it started to drive that value. But what it also meant was, because we'd had all those conversations, engaging stuff at the start, the sales had picked that up, the stories, and they could start to differentiate, which is a key part of customer experience. It also meant high employee adoption. You love using it, yeah? If you could get away with using Excel instead of Jira or whatever, you might, I don't know, yeah? You've got to do that. And ultimately, NPS, Net Promoter Score, as an example, yeah, we increased that, and engagement just by putting those little bits in the front, hopefully increasing things. 4 more slides, I know. Thank you. So how can customers and developers both benefit from within here? So we have a product called, or there is a product I should say, called screen recording. So we talked earlier within the contact center that you have to record a call. Basically, it might be because of compliance. Do you say things like, call is being recorded? Do you do the best sales practice? Do you finish a call off correctly? Yeah. So you have to check what's being said within the call. With screen recording, there is a couple of scenarios you want, but generally the most useful one is, well, you get hold time in a contact center, and hold time is just expensive. You could be on another call handling somebody else's problem. Why is there hold time? You might just get a line on the call recording player going hold time. Woo. But you need to see what they're doing on the screen. The negative half of me says, actually, they're on YouTube, going, put the customer on hold, I'm going to watch YouTube, this is great. That's an experience, yeah? But actually what it is they've gone into your software, Salesforce, Zoho, whatever it is, and they cannot navigate around the appropriate parts of the tree. So you can learn from how your users use your software, because actually that menu tree that you thought was wonderful isn't that wonderful after all. So that's the problem it's solving. It's trying to create a much more holistic approach to how agents are using software in contact center. That's clearly our background. So how did we do it? We totally focused, on the process. We wanted to totally engage, get the right process in and make sure we were developing correctly. The reason we were doing that is there are two ways to basically record a screen. And again, I'm oversimplifying. You can have a bit of software on your desktop that records the screen. That's great. Or you can have something in the browser that records it, which is WebRTC. Sorry if it gets technical, hopefully. But basically, it's one that says, can I have your permission to record a screen? Or one that does it in stealth. Yeah? There's arguments for both. But if we had built one that the customer said, we don't want to do that, then the product would have fallen flat on its face. And with screen recording, there are lots of key factors like how many frames or pictures do you capture every second? Yeah? Should it be HD? How many screens are we capturing? We can capture 9 screens at any one time if you really want. There's a lot of technical stuff up there. So we actually got the developers in front of customers, and believe me, when I phone up the customer and say, can I have a chat with you? And I'll just have a developer or two with me. And there's basically the customer, me, because he's thinking I'll talk to the product manager. And you've got like 6 developers just staring at you going, oh, we're interested. But what it actually meant was that we had those leading indicators because we knew what the challenges were when it came to development and deployment, more importantly. But we also now felt we were much more of a team because the developers had been engaged all the way up here. And we actually had the salespeople part of this because, believe it or not, this is starting to become, visionary within our area, and we are enabling our customers to be the best in their industry, to basically make them a visionary and to basically execute it really well. So that's where we applied it. What did that give us? Well, customer engagement. It's amazing when you hear a customer going, yes, your developers are a bit intimidating because they ask these really awkward questions, but actually, I'm so appreciative. You are seeing how important my problem is that you are solving. Again, that's part of the experience, within there. More questions, more engagement within there. And you could see that they could see that we were committed to their problem rather than let's just talk to the product management, capture a few requirements, move on. Yeah. But because of the development involvement, as I've said, there were a lot of technical hurdles we had to overcome within here, WebRTC, whatever. So actually, because we got that up front, we knew for future, in terms of leading indicators, how easy is it going to go to market, life was going to be so much easier. There are always going to be differences of opinion. But because we had the developers focusing purely on that area, we had the OKRs as a bigger team, then they were much more engaged and motivated, which we've heard about earlier on today and other things. And this has ultimately led to an increased speed to market, which is basically money back in the bank, stuff like that, which is just an additional benefit of the customer experience. And we could then go to our customers and talk about benefit much earlier. And then ultimately, we are providing this differentiating customer support, which brings me back, last slide almost coming up, to in the world of SaaS, where people can just buy stuff, turn it on, and it's great, and we can innovate fast, and we can do that, and there's no software. The other evil side of that story is I can uninstall it, put somebody else's in, whatever. So in the world of SaaS, you only need to be that little bit better. And what's the easiest way to become a little bit better? Customer experience. We've heard it from the top, from Alan talking about it, other POs, developers, whatever within here. So to round up, last slide, I know I'm out of time. Thank you very much. Summary, just things to take away. To try and put it down into one slide, basically think outside in. Don't just think at your role. Think of the handbag thing. We're just sending out a text message. So what? No, you're delighting somebody by doing that process. Same process, but think differently. How do you know, and I don't know if you can see this, if it will be a good product? Don't ask at the end of 10 sprints, is it good? Have we fixed it? No, let's have the leading indicators to tell me if it's going to be a good product. and basically focus on one pillar really well, yeah? And that's where you're going to do. And the emotional aspects, not is it easy to use, I press a button and I log in. So I have an app which is good for my stocks and shares, and I log in with my thumb, woo, you know, that's easy. But am I engaged with it? Not really, you know, it just says I've got 1 million, not 10 million in the bank, if only. Sorry, bad joke. Within there, use the tools at the correct time. So a leading indicator at the end of 10 sprints isn't really going to be very useful. Let's bring it forward 10 sprints and start to implement it at that point. And focus on vision or execution first. Basically, vision, not both. Think Uber, think, you know, Twitter, whatever. They had the vision and then they went for the execution within here. And then look to the transformers to take your product to the place everybody else wants to go. Don't just go, oh, minimal viable product. That's what Agile says. No, keep that in mind. So ultimately, what you're hopefully going to do is by combining these external frameworks, and Agile's a framework, yeah, along with Agile, so we looked at various ones, should hopefully lead to this much better, you know, customer experience and ultimately result in a better Agile experience, development experience, and most importantly, stickiness and loyalty from your customers in a SaaS world. Thank you very much.